When we left off, Detective Shiela Geathers and the NYPD were closer than they had ever been to solving a murder investigation that had terrorized New York City for months. 4 people were dead. 3 separate homes, 3 separate neighborhoods, 4 seemingly unrelated lives. Yet every victim shared one critical vulnerability. They lived their lives publicly, their schedules, their routines, their habits, their movements. Information that most people considered harmless had been gathered, studied, and weaponized by someone patient enough to watch. As investigators dug deeper, 4 possible suspects emerged. Brandon Kessler, an online harasser whose obsession with a victim initially appeared capable of turning violent. Eric Donnelly, a forum administrator whose online communities connected multiple victims and whose language mirrored ideas uncovered during the investigation. Victor Harlan, a maintenance contractor whose access to residential properties and industrial sites made detectives deeply suspicious. And finally, Terrence Saunders, a local beat reporter whose profession allowed him to move freely throughout neighborhoods, interact with strangers, monitor social media constantly, and blend into virtually any environment without attracting attention. At various points, detectives believed each of these men could be responsible. Each possessed pieces of the puzzle. Each appeared capable of explaining portions of the crime, yet none fully explained everything. Tonight, Detective Geathers reveals how forensic science dismantled every false theory, exposed the real killer, and ended a case built on patience, surveillance, and murder. Detective, tell the audience how the investigation finally came together.
The final phase of the investigation was less about discovering new evidence and more about understanding the evidence we already possessed. For months, we had been building separate pieces of a picture: victimology, surveillance, digital evidence, forensic evidence, behavioral analysis. Each piece existed independently. Then suddenly they started fitting together. The first suspect we eliminated was Brandon Kessler. Brandon had entered the investigation almost immediately because his online behavior was alarming. His communications with one of the victims were aggressive, obsessive, and hostile. He appeared angry enough to commit violence. The problem was that anger was the only thing connecting him to the murders. Digital forensic analysts reconstructed Brandon's movements during every critical period surrounding the killings. His devices, employment records, financial transactions, surveillance footage, and witness statements all supported one conclusion: he wasn't our killer. Just as importantly, his personality didn't fit the offender we were hunting. Brandon was impulsive. The killer was patient. Brandon wanted attention. The killer avoided attention. Brandon lashed out emotionally. The killer planned methodically. Eventually, the evidence became impossible to ignore. Brandon Kessler was cleared. The second suspect was Eric Donnelly. Eric concerned us for entirely different reasons. Several victims actively participated in online communities he managed. Investigators repeatedly encountered references to the word order throughout those communities. Martin Reeve had referenced the same word before his death. At first, the connection appeared significant. The deeper we dug, however, the weaker it became. The forums explained how information moved between users. They did not explain murder. Server records, activity logs, and verified interactions established that Eric could not have committed the crimes. His communities may have unknowingly exposed victim information, but they did not make him a killer. Eric Donnelly was cleared. That left Victor Harlan and Theo Jurgren. Victor remained the strongest suspect for weeks. Unlike Brandon and Eric, Victor possessed physical access. He worked around homes. He worked around industrial facilities. He understood security systems. He understood neighborhoods. He understood how people became comfortable in their surroundings. Then surveillance investigators enhanced footage recovered from several locations. What initially appeared to be Victor's vehicle wasn't. What initially appeared to be Victor's distinctive jacket wasn't unique. What initially appeared to be evidence was ultimately coincidence. Financial records, employment documentation, surveillance footage, and witness statements established that Victor could not have been present during several critical events. The evidence didn't weaken the case. It destroyed it. Victor Harlan was cleared. Then came Theo Jurgren. He was cleared because his alibi checked out. He was not in New York City for nearly 6 months on business in Europe at the time of all 4 murders. Theo Jurgren was cleared. At that point, only one suspect remained: Terrence Saunders. What made Terrence frightening was how ordinary he appeared. Unlike the other suspects, Terrence never attracted attention. He wasn't threatening. He wasn't loud. He wasn't angry. He wasn't memorable. He was exactly the type of person most people overlook. That was precisely what made him dangerous. The first major break came from the touch DNA recovered from the victims. Laboratory analysts completed advanced testing on microscopic skin cell transfers recovered from clothing and personal effects connected to all 4 victims. The same unidentified male profile appeared repeatedly. The same individual had physically interacted with every victim. The profile was submitted for comparison. Days later, the result came back: Terrence Saunders. The match existed because Terrence had previously been arrested and convicted years earlier in an unrelated assault case. His DNA profile had been lawfully entered into the database. For the first time, investigators possessed scientific evidence connecting a suspect directly to every victim. But we needed more. DNA was powerful. Corroboration was essential. Then came the fingerprints. Latent print examiners had recovered partial fingerprints from evidence connected to multiple scenes. For months, those prints remained unidentified. When Terrence's known prints were obtained and compared, the results were conclusive. The latent prints matched. The same man who left DNA behind had left fingerprints behind. The same man whose fingerprints appeared at multiple locations was Terrence Saunders. At that point, the investigation accelerated rapidly. But the final piece came from the surveillance evidence. The dark utility van that had haunted the investigation from the beginning had never been identified because investigators lacked sufficient visual detail. Now they had a suspect. That changed everything. Vehicle registration records, insurance records, maintenance records, toll records, and surveillance imagery were reviewed together. The van belonged to Terrence. Not a similar van, not a comparable van, his van. The same vehicle appearing near victim locations before the murders. The same vehicle disappearing immediately afterward. The same vehicle that Martin Reeve described before his death. DNA, fingerprints, surveillance. 4 independent forensic paths leading to the same man. The case was over. Terrence simply didn't know it yet. Investigators executed search warrants almost immediately. What we found was deeply disturbing. Terrence had maintained extensive files regarding the victims. Schedules, addresses, photographs, routine observations, work locations, personal notes, months of documentation. The murders hadn't started when he entered those homes. The murders had started when he began watching. That realization explained everything. His profession provided access. His reporting assignments placed him throughout the city. His constant interaction with social media exposed him to victim information. His work allowed him to ask questions without raising suspicion. His presence rarely attracted attention because people expected reporters to be there. He had built the perfect disguise. Normalcy. The arrest occurred 2 days later. Investigators established surveillance and moved carefully. We feared he might flee. We feared he might select another victim. Fortunately, neither happened. When officers moved in, Terrence attempted to leave the area, but was quickly intercepted and taken into custody. The arrest ended months of uncertainty. The trial followed.
Stop right there!
The evidence was overwhelming. DNA, fingerprints, vehicle records, surveillance footage, victim files, digital records, witness testimony. Every major piece of evidence reinforced the others. The jury convicted him on all counts. He received life imprisonment. People always ask why. Why these victims? Why these homes? Why these lives? The truth is that not every murder has a complicated answer. Terrence wasn't driven by money. He wasn't driven by revenge. He wasn't driven by ideology. He appeared driven by control. The victims represented opportunity, predictability, accessibility. Once he identified them, he studied them. Once he studied them, he selected them. And once he selected them, the outcome was almost inevitable. That may be the most unsettling lesson from the entire case. The killer wasn't hiding in darkness. He wasn't hiding on the fringes of society. He was standing in plain sight. Watching, listening, learning, waiting. And if forensic science had not caught up with him, when it did, there is little doubt in my mind that there would have been a fifth victim, and a sixth, and a seventh, until eventually somebody noticed the pattern. Fortunately for the city, we noticed it first.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Case Files of NYPD, Detective Shiela Geathers. We invite you to return for another episode in a few days. Have a great evening.